Hi, everybody. This is Art Matthews, and I fish the FLW, the Bama side, and also the Bulldog side. And I just finished Lake Eufalua on April 29th. And one of the things that I wanted to start doing was to tell my side of the story as far as co-angling and whatnot, because I've taken a very serious approach to co-angling. A lot of us want to be a boater and whatnot, and there's a fine line, a big line actually, not a fine line. There's a big difference between being a boater and a co-angler. And if you are a co-angler, then you need to, in my opinion, approach co-angling very differently than you would if you were a boater. And one of the first things that I like to do to talk to you about is being efficient on the water. It's almost imperative, it is imperative that you prepare yourself as much as you can before you actually throw your line in. And that starts with at least a week before. Start doing research on the lake. You never know what your boater might be. He might be a boater, but he might not be as skilled as finding fish as other boaters are. And so you need to be able to contribute. And that doesn't mean you have to know waypoints and things like that, but have an idea of where you think you would want to fish if you were a boater, and do that by preparing, by getting maps, by going to websites and blogs and finding out little tidbits. You can usually filter through, the usual and find something that you can use on Lake Eufalua or any lake. For me, it was Lake Eufalua. Being efficient on the water. When you get there and you put your equipment in the boat, as soon as you both are in the boat and you get through the cordials and all that, you need to start to prepare to fish. So that means you need to unravel all of your fishing poles. You need to make sure they're clear. So what do I mean by clear? That you can pick one up that you're going to use as soon as that boat stops and he gets ready to fish. Okay? And you do that while you're in the water before the national anthem. And then by the time the national anthem has started playing, you should be ready to go. Another thing, most important to me, is your attitude towards co-angling. You cannot fish the same way as the boater fishes. Case in point, on Lake Eufalua, the guys say we were fishing very shallow. We're not going to go any deeper than 5 or 6 feet, and I don't think we went deeper than 4 feet. And he said he caught them all on spinner baits and whatnot during practice. And so I knew right then I couldn't throw spinner baits unless that's all the fish wanted. And so when he threw a spinner bait, I tied on a rattle trap, a Booyah Chrome Sexy Shad rattle trap, and I whacked him. And he humbled himself, and he got himself a rattle trap as close to mimicking, my Booyah rattle trap. And, when you do that, humble yourself also. Don't have an ego on the boat, because the tables could turn. He could have easily been throwing that spinner bait, whacking him, and he wouldn't even had to say anything after the second fish. I am on a spinner bait, maybe a variation, maybe a chatter bait, but if the fish are hitting something in particular, you definitely need to mimic that, okay? Also, too, the last 2 hours of a fishing tournament, to me, are the most crucial. Why? If you haven't got a limit, you're worried about a limit, you're tired, the elements, they add to that. Your focus is a little different, and your focus should always stay the same. It should be even more focused the last 2 hours of the tournament. I didn't pick up my fourth fish until maybe about an hour until we had to leave. Okay. I finished 9th on Eufalua, Art Matthews. I cast a check of $251. And it was because I read the water. I went opposite of what my boater did. And you have to work the rattle trap right. It's not just a rattle trap that you throw and you reel in. That's just the basics of it. If you have a long enough rod, you can actually maneuver that rattle trap along weed banks. You have to know the depth at which that rattle trap is running. there's just a whole lot of technique that goes with running a rattle trap, and you had to vary it and to see what they wanted. And what they wanted it right up next to the weed line, and they wanted you to yo-yo it just a little bit, as if that fish was darting in and out of the weed line because they're spawning. So you had to mimic that, and that's how I got almost a limit. But more importantly, that's how I cashed a check, and that's what's important. So stay tuned, because I'm going to give you some more in-depth things that I feel like a co-angler needs, and it's strictly for the co-angler. So stay tuned, and give me a few likes if the information was useful. Thanks.